where there are strings attached, love has been forgotten. Because love is abundant, it's ever flowing, it is not lacking, and therefore it does not need to insist upon receiving anything in return for what it gives, for itself. And I say forgotten because love is. If there are strings, love is still there, but there's a misunderstanding and a fear that causes us to attach strings in order to try to take what it is that's already being freely given by our God. We don't need to take it from another. It lives inside of us if we'll only go in and connect. But I have broken a pattern. Well, we shall see, because I will be presented with an opportunity and faced with a certain scenario in which I can now apply learned wisdom. I have encountered a certain pattern, a certain relationship dynamic in my life over and over and over again. And that is one in which I am given something by a person. It's presented to me as this is a gift. And then I later find out that there are strings attached, meaning it's held over my head or it's thrown in my face when I do not behave in a certain kind of way that that person wants me to behave, or I don't give them something that they want from me. So then it is revealed that it wasn't a gift at all, but a piece of bait with a line and a hook. And I took it. And if it happens once, okay, shame on you, the person who threw out that line with the hook and the bait. But if it happens 20 times, even 3 times, that's a pattern. And I'm complicit in it, and I have been. And I have danced around the issue and tried to excuse it and tried to say, like, oh, it's because they're looking at my light and they don't have their own. And yeah, that is true. But I have the responsibility of protecting my light and owning my light and not giving it out willy-nilly or spoon-feeding it to people who are not taking the responsibility to stoke their own fire or flame and grow their own light, because I'm helping in that way to infantilize that person, and I'm actually helping to I'm holding that person back from their own growth. That blew my mind when I recognized that not only am I being abused, but I'm abusing by refusing to look at the truth, to examine the pattern, to acknowledge that I am the common denominator here. Because it runs deep, this pattern. It's rooted in my childhood. It has entwined itself and insinuated itself into the very fabric of my being, because it's tied into my Father who made me. And I'm not speaking of my Father in heaven. I'm speaking of the man that wed my mother. And he was very abusive. And he did not take responsibility for stoking and feeding his own flame or growing his own light. And he fed off of mine, his own child's light. And I loved him still, of course, and I wanted to please him and I wanted to fix him. And I have again and again engaged in codependent relationship dynamics where I try to fix the other person, right? By saying, oh, I have so much love to give. So even if they are trying to be manipulative, it's okay, because I'm going to love the toxicity right out of them. I'm going to fill them up with my light. That's not how it works. Light comes from within. You can't give someone else your light. So I've been doing that, though not on the level of like thinking that I'm doing that. It's all very unconscious. But this is how I've been justifying it. It's very subtle. The intellectual tricks and games we play with ourselves to deny reality, to create an illusion that is more comfortable for us, because we don't want to do the uncomfortable work of looking at the shadow, tending the wound, putting on the salve, the disinfectant that might sting the truth. You know, truth is love, love is truth, but love and truth don't always feel good when you're resisting it, when you're hiding from it. It's like when you've been asleep all night long in a dark room and someone turns on a really bright light and you open up. It's startling, it's painful. It's like that when you finally take a look at deep, deep patterns and wounds. That's why a lot of people fail to do shadow work. And I've been doing, shadow work, meaning intentionally seeking to find the places in me where I'm hiding from myself and casting shadows in the world and projecting out into the world my darkness and thinking it's something outside of me. I've been doing that work for a long time. There's so many layers to it, and I think the earlier our wounds occur, the earlier these shadows manifest, the harder it is, the more painful it is to deal with them. So this is a big one for me. And so no doubt, because this last time I encountered it, I engaged with it in the same way, this dynamic of someone giving me something that has strings attached. I engaged with it in the same way I always have, which is to ignore my intuition, ignore the very obvious fact that this person is clearly, by their behavior, it's very obvious that they don't have their own lights, meaning they're rather self-absorbed, and they're not very reciprocal in the conversation or the relationship in general. It's very one-sided, and I'm doing a lot of the giving. I ignore all of that and say, well, I just have so much love to give. It's codependent. It's toxic even on my part. And it's a wound that I haven't been looking at. So now that I see it, now that I'm addressing it, it will be presented to me again. That's how it works. These patterns, these situations, that they'll come up over and over and over again. This is how much God loves us. We keep getting opportunities to recognize and fix the problem and respond appropriately rather than react in a way that's harmful. So I will be presented with this sort of dynamic or personality or energy again. But next time, I'm going to own it. I'm going to take responsibility, and I'm going to protect my own light. And I am going to find a way to be loving and truthful in a way that hopefully encourages and inspires that person to step into their own light. In other words, be an example, but not a spoon feeder of light, I can't give anybody else my light or my love. I can be loving. I can share love, but I can't implant love in someone else's heart and make them share it. That's not how it works. So thankful for my friend who brought this to my attention, that this pattern, I'm the common denominator.